Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Harvey is still pushing on with his mad rent control idea. We all know it's a bad idea. I know it's a bad idea. You know it's a bad idea. And it's failed everywhere it's taken on. But we are going to have a look at why. Now, I've been in the housing industry 35 years as an accountant for a house builder, but we had rental properties, commercial as well as domestic. And so, yes, I am fully versed in the ways of the world in this particular field. But we're not going to rely on my expert knowledge. We're going to rely on bigger, better experts. Because there is a report published today by the Adam Smith Institute that is explaining why rent controls will fail. If anyone's going to know, it's going to be them, one of the oldest and most highly regarded economic institutions in the world. Adam Smith, of course, basically invented modern economics, and so his institute may know a thing or two about it. So we'll take a look at this, see what's going on, but we'll do so knowing that wise as they are and correct as they are, Patrick Harvey will never listen to them because he isn't putting in rent controls to control rent, but simply to destroy Scotland's housing industries. Let's take a look. Right, so this is it. As you say, it's dated today. It literally just come out at the time I'm making this about an hour earlier. I thought, well, I'm definitely going to be doing this, and this is from the Adam Smith Institute. So, in many ways, the frequent calls from politicians to implement rent controls, they say, are remarkable, insofar as, despite their repeated failure to solve the rental crisis, they're still being consistently proposed as the solution. They are definitely not the solution. Both from my knowledge and from what they're going to say, it always fails. It can't help because people are human beings. Human beings have agendas. Human beings have needs and requirements. In Scotland, where temporary rent controls have predictably driven down the availability of private properties by 20% and raised rents on new tenancies by 14%, great idea. The SNP have doubled down on their failure and is seeking to ban rent increases for up to 5 years. Now, at this point, you're getting into the area where there'll be literally no housing availability in the private rental sector in Scotland at all. Landlords will just sell up, go deposit their money into the stock market and say, thank you very much, earn 5, 6, 7%. No hassle. Anyway, when rent controls have been tried elsewhere, the results have been identical. Take Berlin, for example, where the 2020 rent caps, which fixed rents at below market rates, were accompanied by decreases in supply 5 times as large as the reductions in price. Equally in Stockholm, rent controls have resulted in a shortfall of 27,000 apartments in one city. As a result, the average queue for a rental apartment in Stockholm is now 11.3 years. That's how long it takes to get a place in Stockholm because, hey, rent controls. Unfortunately, Sadiq Khan's most recent proposal for solving the housing crisis is likely to be just as much of a failure in London as it has been everywhere else. His plan is to deliver 6,000 new homes in which rents would be capped at a third of local salaries. He has also urged the government to delegate him the power to freeze rents across the capital. If granted, this would cause serious issues for an already troubled housing market. Again, thousands of houses on the market all at once, being removed from the rental market sector, which means a lot of people will just never have a home. And it will cause prices to fall, putting some people in negative equity, causing a major follow-through on all aspects of house building, of development, all sorts of things. It has a massive rolling effect. Considering that policymakers have continued to tout rent controls as the answer to our housing crisis, it's worth once again explaining why they inevitably hurt the very tenants they're meant to support. The only way you can cure a housing crisis is quite simple. Build more houses. That's it. The answer lies with one of the key insights of economics, which is incentives matter. And we're talking here very basic economics. We're not talking, professorship or anything. This is A-level economics, really. Changing the incentives presented to the seller of a good will have an impact on the buyer and vice versa. Rent controls have significant negative impacts on the incentives of landlords to operate in the rental market and therefore generate adverse consequences for tenants. The impacts on sellers in the housing market are twofold as well. Firstly, capping prices will weaken the incentive to rent out, encouraging landlords to sell properties and invest in other, more profitable asset classes, such as stocks or bonds, which I have said. Now remember, I haven't read this. This is a hot take. But it goes to show we both think alike. That's what happens when you're doing this job for 35 years. Anyway, YouGov polling has shown 37% of landlords would reduce the number of properties if an external agency like a council was given authority to set rents both during and between tenancies. Properties from this sell-off tend to be sold to those new to intending to live in the properties, as unlike landlords, they're unaffected by rent caps. This will inevitably create shortages in the rental market, as demonstrated by a decline in rental properties available following the rent cap policy in Scotland, where 20% already of properties have gone from the market. And so by protecting tenants with rent caps, what's happening is fewer and fewer houses are available. It's become even harder for tenants. But secondly, it reduces the incentive to invest in the production of new housing. Developers and landlords know that their properties will be stuck by rent controls, which will prevent them from generating adequate revenue to justifying investment in new development. Now, I've covered this in the past, and I said that when a developer who's building, build to rent, they have to factor in total costs, and the way they do that is to look at the return of investment, not just in terms of what your percentage return is, what your markup is, what your profit is, but also the time taken, because time equals money. And if you're having capital tied up longer in this until you can get the profit back out of it to build again, then it becomes less attractive. So what you do is you factor in, this will be the initial rent for the first year, then you raise it by 3%, 4%, whatever, over the years. You build these controls in, you build these rent rises in. It means you get your investment back, so you can use that money then as the seed money to build the next lot of houses. That's how it works. No one ever takes money out of a company. You use it to keep growing the company. You use the profit of one to be the seed for the next profit, and so on. But if all your capital's tied up in a house and it's going to take you 5 years to get to the point where you're starting to make a profit again, you're finished. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, there have been various examples of this effect. In 2023, Get Living, a house builder for build to rent, paused its £200 million plan to build 1,500 new homes due to the Scottish Government's rent control policy. Now that's 1,500 homes not built because of rent control. As the Scottish Landlords Association stated, the rent controls proposals as has been seen in places like Ireland, which has similar measures, will see reduced investment and more landlords leaving the sector, leading to higher costs for tenants. And that's only for the ones who are lucky enough to get an actual home. These combined effects mean that rent controls aimed at keeping rents low for tenants will only result in a reduction of housing supply, creating housing shortages and preventing development. The Greater London Authority's target for affordable housing starts by 2026 is between 23,900 and 27,000 per year. But by February, only 4% have been started. Just 874 new houses out of the approximately 27,000 needed. Why? Sadiq Khan, rent controls, never going to happen. Without allowing for greater development, significant increases in rents are inevitable. Rent controls do not offer a genuine solution to this challenge. Unsurprisingly, the solution to the London housing crisis is less, not more, government regulation. Deregulating planning leads to greater investment into property development, which would expand the supply of housing, reducing rent prices without creating property shortages. It's basic economics. The laws of supply and demand and telling government to keep their big noses out of private contracts between a landlord and a tenant. And when you do that, a lot more properties on the market, rents fall. But when you drive them away, rents go up as sure as night follows day. And they will never learn this because they're all stupid, except for Harvey, who knows full well. But that's not why he's doing it. He wants this to be destroyed because where he treads, he leaves nothing but dust, death and destruction. For him, it is good that nobody has a home. It is good that everyone is homeless and reliant upon the state, because the nasty little Marxist hates the idea of anyone, anywhere, having a smile on their face or having a moment's pleasure, because he's a miserable wee shart. Coming up, if they do manage to bring these rent controls in and, as expected, the housing market shrinks, and then there's many, many more homeless people, one will only have to point to Patrick Harvey and say, this was you. It's not as though he doesn't know. He's been warned. Everyone's telling him. Everybody knows. Everyone in the industry knows. Everyone in house building knows what will happen. Everyone in house sales knows what will happen. Everyone who's in landlord will know what will happen. Everybody knows. And yet he's pushing ahead with it because he's just an obnoxious wee tit, really, who pretends he doesn't know. Let's hope that it's his landlord who sells up. His landlord who makes him homeless. And then he can't find anywhere to live because there's just no places left. And then he can go back to living under the stone from when he crawled some time ago. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.